Hi, if you've been watching any of my videos that I've been posting over the last couple of years, or you're subscribed to my channel, most of the stuff that I post is over Shuai Chiao and over Chong's Tai Chi. This video is over blue belt requirements, which is, so in the Shuai Chiao, well, let me backtrack a little bit. I'm part of the American Combat Shuai Chiao Association, and there are or there was four, we'll say, masters that started this organization, my teacher being one of them. One of the masters has passed away in the last few years, and there are still two other ones. And so each one of those men have different students that are under them, and potentially the way that they would, we'll say, potentially put together their requirements for certification or rank would potentially different. I'm not going to really speak on that because I don't know all of their programs. I don't really know most of their programs. So that being said, though, when I started with this organization 30 years plus years ago, there was white belt, blue belt, black belt, right? And so you really had the blue and the black were two different points of development. To me, the blue belt, and I will say I've tried to change it, even my own self. I've tried to add stripes in between them, or I've tried to add other colored belts and things like that, and I never could get it to work right, you know, like I wanted to, because it was like, I broke this into this, and it's broke into that, and what I realized that for me personally, my teaching and for sharing it with others, it is a method, it's a platform. And my intention is to share that underlying platform with the new student, pupil, what have you, or teacher that wants to add Shuai Chiao to their school, whatever. I want to be able to help them to learn those base pieces as quickly as possible, because those things are what's going to help to enhance their ability to do single throws, combination throws, counter throws, being able to combine kicks and punches and throws for like Sanda, the follow-on techniques, all of that stuff. So what am I talking about? There are 5 primary pieces. One of those is the 13 Tao Bao. 13 Tao Bao to me is not throws, but it is a Qigong set that is it is designed to help develop the structure of the person's stability, you know, in other words, stabilize our muscles and the connective tissue with you know, in and around the joints, the ankles, the knees, the hips, etc. They also help to improve upon the person's underlying stability and balance, right? You know, to be able to do these kind of pieces, right? Or, you know, these kind of pieces like that, right? Well, those aspects are not necessarily, I mean, you could say they're a throw, but they're parts of throws, right? That one piece may give you an enhanced skill set to do this whole grouping of throws, okay? If that kind of makes sense. Like, you can look at this piece as almost like outer leg hooking, right? You're wrapping the guy up, right? Or this piece here, like a bow leaf or inner leg hook, etc., like that. But it is an attribute to help you develop a range of throws. So to me, it's a Qigong set. The bell cracking. The bell cracking is, to me, again, you could say it's throws, but it's aspects of throws. It's predominantly developed to improve your footwork, because most of it is purely just footwork. Marching stance, horse stance, stealing stance. Those 3 core stances are inlaid throughout the whole piece, right? Along with you know, a narrow horse and a low horse. All of that kind of stuff is in that piece. The other part of the belt, yes, the belt is like an apparatus, and it can help you with your grip strength, but it's that crack that I'm trying to time these pieces together so that I can crack this belt and position myself all at the same time. I'm working on that overall body coordination. That's going to help me to increase the force or the torque that I can generate along with my speed to be able to execute the movements. The 24 forms, some of those are controls or defensive actions. Some of them you could say are purely a throw, right? Something like hip throw, right? It's one of the pieces. We could say lower body control leg blocking, but when I do that move, really, I'm working leg blocking, right? Yeah, you know, you could say it's lower body, but it's leg blocking in general, right? I can use leg blocking with necks around it, right? I can use it with pulling. I could use it with cracking in a way, right? So it is an aspect or a tool within the lexicon of the movements that I want to try to develop. But again, some of them are purely throws, like hip throw, right? It's definitely execute the movement. Or I do bowing, right? Is a piece that's a whole bit. We have training apparatus, and those things are just no different than anybody else that does a combat sport, or they're an athlete that, you know, a tennis player, a basketball player, a baseball player. It's irrelevant. They have their athleticism, their natural skills, but then maybe they maybe really have natural ability to do these things very well. But over here, maybe these 2 or 3 things they're lacking, and they need to enhance them, maybe through improving the mobility or the strength, or a combination of aspects, right? So the apparatus are there to help you to do those things. There's a series of traditional pieces that we would do along with Shuai Chiao, and then also coupled with that are traditional, we'll say generalized apparatus from Chinese martial arts. And then myself also, I encourage people also to use any type of apparatus they find from other Asian arts. There's a whole series of things that are used in Okinawan martial arts, of exercise tools, right? Western stuff, or even Indian stuff, right? They have all kind of exercise apparatus that they use for their wrestling and all of that. And so I encourage anybody to look at those things and try to develop those, right? A lot of people use kettlebells. There's nothing wrong with developing your strength, but am I just trying to make muscle, or am I using these apparatus to enhance me to do these, we'll say, activities, you know, to execute these movements? That is the underlying thing. Now, you can say, well, I have students that come to me in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s. Well, I'm not trying to enhance them to do like a particular throw or to be able to generate more power out of this kick or this punch, but for their generalized structure. So the exercises and the Tai Chi and things like that can enhance that, but sometimes they need additional calisthenic type exercises. I'm not trying to make that confusing, but what I'm getting at is I'm not using those apparatus to make me necessarily my muscles bigger, but to make me stronger or faster or some type of articulation. Like for example, my Sifu, he really likes a double-headed pole, single-headed pole, and leg twisting, and the square back, okay? Those are ones that I've seen him use over and over again. There's other ones, it's like a twisting base, but he used to use like a concrete culvert, you know, one of those big pieces that you would put in your drive where the water would go underneath. Those are really heavy. Anyway, there are all of these things that we can use to develop our ability to do something. Again, with him, like the leg twisting pole, right? So pole and twist and hold me up, right? He really likes that movement. If he gets in, he gets in control of you, he wraps on your leg, and he stabilizes himself. And then he can either attack that inside leg with leg lifting, or use it as twisting, or he can use that and when you try to pick him up, he can disengage and wrap the outside leg or leg lift from there. In other words, again, he's learning that apparatus to develop his body to do this thing, right, to enhance it. And then we have one more thing, moving postures. what are moving postures? So in the 24 form, we have several of those postures or forms that are a specific throw. Well, what we want to be able to do is take our throws in general, singles and combinations, and we want to be able to do them no different than you would do in any other type of a line class for a movement, right? Like an example, a grab and a punch, right? A grab and a punch. Well, we do that, right? Right, like this, okay, in the form. Well, we want to do that with our throws, right? So let's say cut, right? Cut. I'll do another one. Cut. It's to help me to get the balance and the overall generalized body coordination, and to also be able to think through that movement, right? I'm trying to develop the intention to do this. I grab his wrist, I grab his elbow, I release the wrist, my leg's behind his leg. I go to push and pull and with the leg at the same time I control it, right? I want to talk myself through that. It's like a form of creative visualization, right? I want to see me performing this action, but I also physically want to do it. Then when I work it with a partner, I should be more efficient at it. I should be able to concentrate more on the act instead of on the little aspects, right? In other words, well, where does my hand go, or is it here? I should have tried to address that when I'm using those moving postures. And also they're great for just generalized cardio exercise. So those 5 things are what the blue belt is, the underlying aspect of it, okay? Now, the rest of it. Those same 12 throws that I picked for my moving postures, so there's 12 of them. Now when you start, and I start saying, develop, grab some throws and start trying to learn them and all of that, those may change several times before you actually take your blue belt test. And that's fine. You may start out with 12, and then when you go to do that blue belt test, you may still be doing 8 of the original ones or 3 of the original ones, right? There's several dozen single throws. There are as many different combos as you can put together, based off of that, doubles and triples, and then there's counters, right? We're not worried about that with this test. We just want the platform. So we have, again, 13 Tao Bao, belt cracking, 24 forms, training apparatus, and then we have moving postures, and that's based off of these 12 throws that you're participating with. From those 12 throws, you also want to be able to do a setup with them. Some form of a kick and a strike to an attachment to be able to execute each of those individual throws. You want to be able to do those as a moving posture in a sense, to train that, and you also want to be able to do it with a partner. And then we have follow-on. The follow-on is the throw itself, and I execute the throw, and I want to be able to train myself to be able to follow him along, to pin or control him, to be able to lock, restrain, or strike if I have an attachment. If I lose the attachment, pretty much all I have is the follow-on of kicking, or to be able to maintain we'll say a position around him to keep him on the ground if I feel a need to do that, okay? So those are kind of like partner training, okay? And then we have the fundamental stuff that anybody should be doing in a class. Periodically, I should be doing some sparring. I should be doing some kind of wrestling or grappling stuff in the class. And then we have like sensitivity training, so it's called sticking, striking, grappling. So that is no different than the Wing Chun practitioner doing Chi or the Tai Chi practitioner doing their form of push hands, or the wrestler doing some form of pummeling, right, to get a hold and attacks to the person. So we kind of merge those things together. So they're striking, pulling, pushing, controlling, tripping, the whole thing. And even older people that come to me in their 70s learn how to do that. Now, of course, we don't execute it all the way. They're not trying to hit really hard with a 75-year-old man, or they're getting thrown on the ground. But what's great for them is that it's that ebb and flow, that push and pull, that absorbing or yielding to that force, and it helps them to redevelop the stability and balance that they potentially have lost. And I'm not talking about in Shuai Chiao for them to practice. I'm talking about in the Chong's Tai Chi. So they very much are one place off of the other, if that makes sense. There's also, they need to understand the basic idea of the jacket. This is how you put the jacket on, this is how the belt works. These are grips on the jacket. This is how to break grips on the jacket. This is how to use the jacket for spinning and tearing, which you would use that stuff in competition. You can also use those same attributes if the person's got on a jacket or a thicker apparel that maybe you can seize, then you can use it and spin and pull them to be able to try to execute throws off of them. I don't recommend, on a side note, I don't recommend anybody just doing jacket work. Predominantly what I do is without a jacket. Also, they need to understand the basic idea of sparring with Sandan, right? Kicks and punches and throws. If they did actually go to a competition, this is what would be required. And then strategies for sport wrestling, for Sandan. I don't really take people to point sparring or continuous sparring unless they're just very much a beginner and they do that one time, that continuous sparring to get the idea of it. But then if they really want to go further, I mean, I guess if they were older or something like that, and you know, or maybe they're not overly serious, maybe they just stick with continuous sparring. Nothing wrong with that. But you know, if you really want to push yourself in the combat sport world, point sparring and continuous sparring, I wouldn't think that those would, to me, that wouldn't be included. It would be something where it would be more full contact, kickboxing, boxing, Sanda, Muay Thai, mixed martial arts in general, right? So anyway, and then a fundamentalist approach to how I would utilize these methods on the street. So anyway, the core of it is developing my foundation. If I develop my foundation, then I can enhance my ability to do the throws or combination throws. I have better balance, better stability, all of that kind of stuff. So the blue belt test, to me, there is no 30 months and then you do this and then 3 months later you get that and 3 months later you get that because you're paying me. I don't really do it like that. It is when you can do these things, and I encourage people, especially those 5 attributes, the 13 Tao Bao, the belt cracking, the 24 forms, some apparatus, and 12 moving postures, that you learn that stuff as quickly as possible. Some of the other stuff, sparring, or wrestling, or doing kicks and strikes with your throws, or follow-on techniques, or working with a partner, develop your ability to do the sticking, striking, grappling. That stuff can take some time. But if you're already fluent in those kind of things, then it shouldn't be that difficult for you to get a blue belt if you do those things. But to me, if you are doing Shuai Chiao and you're in that ranking, a blue or a black belt, I mean, I'm talking about in other groups, I would think that if you don't understand those 5 things, it would be really hard to say that you really do Shuai Chiao or you understand it. And I don't mean that in a negative way. If somebody's watching this, well, how dare he say that? You know, it's not that. It's that what really is the foundation of the system. And if you can't do the foundation material, then are you really doing the system? There's one other aspect of the test. So if you were taking the test, you would have to be able to perform, again, 13 Tao Bao, belt cracking, 24 forms, training apparatus, these 12 throws as moving postures. Those same 12 throws, you're going to do them with a setup, a kick and a strike and a throw. You're also going to do them from the throw and now with a follow-on type of movement, a lock, a restraint, a strike, etc. like that. And you've got to be able to do it and it looks fluid. You also would want to be able to show that you fundamentally understand the idea of sparring, not just to do the moves to show how good you are, but do you understand the safety of it? Do you understand, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that? Because it's long term. We're not trying to do something for a short term and then get injuries. The same thing with wrestling. We want to make sure that we can do it and we can perform it well. So if you went to a competition, you look like you know what you're doing, and you do. The sticking, striking, grappling is something fun that you can do all the way to the ground with the throws and the follow-on techniques, or you can just do we'll say the striking and the push-pull, the grappling aspect, the destabilizing, all of that stuff, and that's fun. You can do that anywhere, and you should. I mean, develop it. Show that you understand how to use the jacket, how to put it on, how to put on your belt. You understand the basic rules of Sanda, and just be able to briefly give an understanding of what's the difference between sport and street, and how one would apply for this or for that. The only other thing with all of this is conditioning, and this test hasn't really changed that much. I've tried to add stripes, I've tried to add other belts, and I'll go back to the same thing that my Sifu and my Kung Fu uncles, like Master Lin and Master Wu and Master Qi, that they put this together, white, blue, black. And it's like, a lot of people, it's hard to keep them encouraged. I think I need more stripes, or I can do more belts. And I'm not knocking anybody that does that. There's probably the core of people do that now. And I'm probably one of the only people that still just do white, blue, black. But I look at it differently now. I'll give you an example. Before I came to Shuai Chiao, I was already doing Wing Chun. And I went to Hong Kong and I trained with Ip Chun. Actually, I trained with him several times. And I asked him on my first trip there, I said, this is in like 1994, I said, how quickly should somebody learn Wing Chun? Because, the person that I trained with before, it should be years to do this, and blah, 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 all of that. And he's just really straightforward in the translation from the man is that you need to learn it as quickly as possible. And what he was trying to get at is the three-hand forms, the wooden dummy especially, the weapons over here, which that's different, but I mean, you can still do them all in a short period of time, but yeah, three-hand forms in the wooden dummy. That is your platform. If you don't understand, if you were spending a year to do Sun and Tao, and then another year to do Chong Chu and Bill G, or the wooden dummy, and then Bill G, different people, whatever, it takes you 4 or 5 years just to learn the platform. That's no different than, say, the boxer and the coach goes, okay, well, man, I'm going to show you a jab and an uppercut. In 6 months, I'll show you the other 2 core punches, right? You get it? It's about learning it as the base as quickly as you can, and then developing it all together as a unit. By doing that, I enhance and improve myself. If I break it apart piece by piece like that, it's harder for the student to see how it all merges together to develop that person's ability to execute those other pieces. So if that makes sense. The only other part is the conditioning. And the conditioning in the 90s and the early 2000s, because I really haven't changed this much, other than I streamlined some of this and categorized it a little better, I guess is a good way to say it, is the conditioning. In the 90s and the 2000s, it was you do the 12 throws, and if you can do 10 on the left, 10 on the right, that makes 240 throws, and your partner's going to do 240 throws, right? So it's 480 throws, and you got to do that in an hour or less. And it may sound like a lot, and it is, but those guys at that time were training 4 to 5 days a week. They were competing in other countries. They were competing in national, international Sanda competitions, wrestling competitions, form competitions. I mean, that was they were not the average person that comes twice a week. So I've changed that. It's 120 throws that you need to be able to do, and your partner does his 120 throws, and you do that in an hour or less. And really, in reality, if you're 35 or to 18, you should be able to do that in 45 minutes. If you think that that's a lot, then you're not looking at it the way that I'm looking at it. What I mean by that is you're going to your Shuai Chiao class twice a week, and each of those classes you're doing, let's say 50 throws, right? That's 100 throws. If you're doing that consecutively, and that's how you're training, right? I do 50 throws, that,